Welcome to Hope Through the Hard, a curated coalition podcast where we talk honestly about life struggles and how to face them in healthy, hope-filled ways. In 2 Corinthians 4, Paul says, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." That's the purpose of this space. Real conversations about the hard things in life and the hope that carries us through. Visit curatedcoalition.com to find our coaching services and book a free consultation.
Hi, I'm Levi, and this is Ashley, and today Lincoln is running our production, and our kid question is, if you could rewrite one thing in history,
they didn't type today.
What would it be? And it didn't spell check. If you could rewrite one thing in history, what would it be?
In all of history.
That's huge. Do you go all the way back to Adam and Eve and make it to where they don't sin? And
well, that would be nifty. As if the next person wouldn't.
Right. Right. Yeah. What do you got?
I think that if I could rewrite anything, I would maybe like to be born during the time of ancient Egyptians. So if I could rewrite that, because I would really, really, really like to explore the pyramids and like to have seen that. But I would sort of like for it to be a little bit like a Magic Treehouse where I'm just kind of a spectator. I don't really want to move
live
those
there?
Big blocks.
You don't want to live there and...
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. I'd be okay with that for a while. I just don't want to be on the workforce.
Yeah. Yeah. Understand. Yeah. I think some situations is like a lot of the wars that have happened and taken place, right to where they could just solve disagreements.
You're telling me your answer is Miss Congeniality World Peace?
Instead of, innocent people dying. That's more where it's at. It's not so much world peace. It's more of how many people had to die because a couple of people couldn't agree on something or...
The wrong person got power.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I would still like to be able to sneak into the library in Alexandria and just read some really original books.
Right.
Yeah.
Be a fly on the wall. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
I know. That's why I said it.
Too many books.
No such thing. Okay. Well, that was a good kid question. Yeah. I enjoyed that one.
Good one.
So we are doing part 3 today of our multi-part series on finding the hard, identifying the hard so that we can truly offer hope. And so today our episode is about culture and how the darkness shows up in culture. And we're kind of right in the middle of not just those physical, real wars that you were talking about, but the much more large scale spiritual wars that are all around us every day.
Right.
And so that's sort of what we're talking about today. And so I think to begin to understand that, you have to kind of understand the world that we live today. And so for me, as far back as I can remember, not that my parents turned on a lot of news, but my grandparents had the news on a lot. And so you would hear some very sophisticated sounding man, and he would detail either the local or the national news. And it was most often the negative.
Right.
You would hear about plane crashes and deaths and shootings and lots of war. Particularly like the Gulf War is what I remember hearing about. And then, when we were older, the war against terror and things like that. But it was always just car crashes and airplane wrecks and
fires or something like that.
Yeah, just lots and lots of death. And then some other ominous voice would remind parents that it was 9:00. Do you know where your kids are? Yep. And it sort of infused in my brain and my psyche that there was always a proverbial boogeyman lurking somewhere behind the bush or around the next corner. And he was waiting to get me or waiting to do something horrible. And that kept the younger version of me very afraid of what was in the world and what was going on in the world. So that's sort of,
Yeah. Well, and today a lot's really changed in the past 40 years, right?
No, for sure.
And so now instead of TV, it's on our phones, it's on our devices, it's push notifications and just pops up of something's happened. And sometimes it's small little things, but then other times it's big things.
Huge things.
That, and then news outlets, if you're getting both sides of the story, which is ideal in the situations because they kind of have a way of rage baiting everybody to listen to just their side and talk about how bad everybody else is. And so we continually have things trying to transform the way that we see things. And part of that is because it releases a tiny amount of dopamine when those things take place. And so it's like, oh, man, that got me a little excited. Something came across. And so how do I keep getting more? And that's the way that the news systems work out. That's the way a lot of, even videos that we watch is just trying to give us a little something exciting that makes us to want to continue to watch more. And so instead of being raged and anger over set way of being said, how do we pray through that?
Right.
And then work through those situations of, instead of getting angry, I really see what the source is that's causing this. And I can stay in peace and pray to God, take care of this situation of what's going on, but then,
and trust
that he knows, or also, hey, open up my eyes. Help me be able to see the real truth in this situation. As there's one side, means there's another side, and what's really the truth in the situation. So evil becomes visible whenever we start to ask God to open up our eyes to see those things, and it often has roots deeper than what it's meant to see in our own eyes.
Yeah, that's very true. It's often a much deeper situation than what we can just see right in front of us.
Right.
And that reminds us, or should remind us, that the spiritual realm doesn't always stay hidden. If you're looking for it, you can see it, and it manifests itself in things like injustice and violence and cultural upheaval and ideology warfare. Like, your ideas are bad, which makes me hate you. And so it was really interesting. We were planning to talk about this week, and this particular verse came up in my Bible study. And so I was like, oh, that is perfect for what we're going to talk about. It's Romans 3:10-18. And it says, as it is written, none is righteous, no, not one. No one understands. No one seeks for God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one. Their throat is an open grave. They use their tongues to deceive. The venom of asps is under their lips. Their mouth is full of curses and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. In their paths are ruin and misery. And the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. And so I just that to me tells the full story of the fact that absolutely nothing is good in the world. Right. We have such a propensity as humans to do bad.
Right.
and so that tells us that we have spiritual beings that are hostile to God. And Paul describes those in Ephesians 6, those ancient spiritual beings, the powers, principalities, spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms that he talks about in Ephesians 6. And we talked last time about how those reflect back to those ancient Old Testament words that we see from Genesis 3 and Genesis 6. And they are manifesting in our world today as evil, deceit, bitterness, cursing each other, shedding blood, ruin, misery. I mean, the list is, it's pretty substantial. Yep. So
And that's kind of gives you like no hope whenever you start to read this list of everything
Super
that's on there. It's
verse.
like, yeah, everybody's terrible. There's no righteous people. There's no good in any way, shape, or form. You're just terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not very encouraging.
Not very encouraging. But there is hope because
Absolutely.
of the situation of what Jesus has done and how we can turn to him. But that's the world we live in. If we continue to look at the world and say, okay, teach me how to live, well, with that, you're going to end up living like this and have no hope because you're going to end up not meeting his standards and trusting in him and loving him. And he's not going to see you because he's just going to see the sin that's in you and what's taking place.
You have to be intentional.
Very intentional.
Yeah.
Dr. Joel Muddamalle says that the spiritual conflicts that are unseen are just as real as what we see in headline news, but it's more final. It produces a setting result, which is kind of interesting of thinking back of the spiritual conflicts that do take place and how he just kind of hits it of seeing it in the headline news that if you want to really see how Satan is attacking over and over, you just got to look at the news.
Right. And so we did. We looked at the news.
Yeah.
We condensed it for you. And it's very encouraging, let me just say.
Sure.
So we wanted to just kind of give you some cultural statistics that would condense down into kind of one sentence, what we have seen in the world in the last 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And it shows us really just how depraved the world has truly become. And so we have viewers in Australia and Great Britain. So we've included some things, and then we've also included some historical references to like major historical genocides and things. But we are going to put all of those statistics, we're going to link those in our show notes. So if these interest you and you're like, oh, where did they get that? That will be in the show notes.
Yeah.
You can find them there.
Because there's so much. Where do you stop? Where do you start?
Yeah.
You know, of seeing all these different things. And so, because again, it's not a weapon problem that we have in a sense of using guns or knives and having those and owning those. It's the people using them.
It's a heart problem.
It's a heart problem. And then as Christians, we're using the wrong weapons to solve those problems.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So whenever we kind of looked at what is going on, where's the violence and what's taking place, United States overall gun deaths in 2023, 46,700 people died, including homicide, suicide, and unintentional from the Pew Research Center. Mass shootings as of October 2025 has tracked over 300 mass shootings so far in 2025. And
That is insane.
we're sitting in October.
Yeah.
Violent victimization rate in 2023, there were 22.5 violent victimizations per 1,000 persons ages 12 and older in 2023, which includes rape, sexual assault, robbery, aggravated, and simply assault.
Yeah.
So
That's insane.
some high numbers because, again, people choosing to act out.
Yeah.
Australia focuses on some stuff we found for 2023 to 2024, homicide incidences in that time from their Australian Institute of Criminology reported 262 homicide incidences, 277 victims. Great Britain recorded homicides in year of 2023. Police recorded 577 homicide offenses in the year of 2023. Knife, sharp instrument homicides in the year of 2023, there were 244 homicides with a sharp instrument. So representing a large number of sharp instruments were being used. So it's not just guns, it's also assault with hands. It's also assault with a weapon of a knife or a sharp object.
Right.
So it's crazy of, we like to say if you get political in some of this, it's a gun problem, and it's not. It's Satan's attacking, and we are using other things, not just a weapon, but our fists and everything else too.
Right.
Sad.
Yeah.
And killing people. That's why, going back to what I said earlier, innocent people are dying. And that's sad.
Right. Well, and not just, they're not only dying, but they're being traumatized. The violent victimization rate, when you really think about that, that's only for people 12 and older.
Right.
What's happening to people 12 and under?
Yeah. Losing their parents or family members or friends or.
Well, but I mean, are those children being raped? Are they being victimized?
Yep.
Probably.
Yep.
We just don't have statistics for that.
Yep.
And so, it's a very gut-wrenching situation. And so we also pulled just a couple of major large-scale political genocides, post World War II. Obviously, there's, the Nazi and the Holocaust and the horrific things and mass deaths there. But after World War II, we had the 1994 genocide in Rwanda when 800,000 people were killed. So that was a state-directed genocide. And then in Cambodia in the 70s, 75 to 79, there estimates 1.5 to 2 million deaths under the Khmer regime. Wow. And so that's just, and those are not talked about. We read about the Holocaust in World War II. Most people are familiar with that, but those two, Rwanda and Cambodia, a lot of people aren't familiar with. Yeah. And those are significant numbers, 800,000, 1.5 to 2 million.
Yeah. Rwanda probably more so because they've made movies about it. But yeah, the Cambodia one is definitely not, and that's a lot of people.
1.5 to 2 million people. So it's just, the numbers are astronomical. So it's no wonder that every time something pops up on our phone, we are immediately pulled toward feelings of rage, anger, bitterness, hatred. The devil uses those things to attack us and to pit us against our fellow humans.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yep. And the rebellion, lawlessness, deception, division, all echo back to Genesis 3, 6, and 11. And the cosmic rebellion. The events in Genesis 6 provide the supernatural background that explains why we see these gut-wrenching statistics and chaos as well. So Muddamalle states that culture reflects heart-level spiritual vices, cultural conflicts, and spiritual blowing-ups in disguise. And we see these different things over and over of being disguised. And that's where it goes back to some of those truths of, in our culture, what is truth?
Right.
What's being hidden from us? And then kind of answers the question of, why do we get angry all the time? What's taking place? And why do we have so much division and not unity?
Right. Yeah, because that's what God wants, is for his children to be united in purpose, united in heart. And so how do we move past that? So when we start to look beyond the headline, the things that we have to ask ourselves are, what spiritual agendas are behind this event?
Yep.
Because the enemy wants to prevent unity, and God desires unity.
Correct.
And so he uses all sorts of different tools to attack every single person differently. He uses gossip and anger, pride, temptations, accusations, oppression, infirmity spirits, like just people being sick, cancer. I mean, that's a huge thing that really has a major toll on people's mindset and their bodies.
Right.
Spiritual dullness, like just not even caring about picking up my Bible. Like, that's been there. I think there's a song that says we have dust on our Bibles, but we have brand new iPhones. And it's so true. Yep. When we are spiritually dull, this never gets opened.
Right.
We never even crack the cover. Right. And that comes through. All of those things, the gossip, the anger, the rage, the bitterness, all of those things come through in temptation and deception. We are just plain old deceived. We're oppressed. These spiritual entities oppress us. They make us sick, and they keep us from praying.
Right. And the big part of that is the deceiver, Satan. And how do we fight him? So avoiding the continual reducing everything down to a political or ideology.
Yeah.
Stop just focusing on, it's a political thing, or it's just a process, an idea. And instead, we learn some spiritual categories. And so the first one is the world.
Yeah.
The fallen culture and societal structures. The second is the flesh, the sinful human part, and the desires and internal corruption that we have. And then the devil, the supernatural evil and diabolical force.
Yeah. Those are really, and you can kind of see them in this Romans 3.
Right.
No one understands and no one seeks God.
Right.
That's heart level, flesh. I don't want to seek the Lord. And it could also be the devil stopping you from wanting to seek the Lord. Turned aside and become worthless and not doing good. Like that. And you see that on the world level and on the personal, heart level. Our throat being an open grave, using them to deceive. Yeah. That's the personal heart level. A lot of these are really, truly, if we could get our own heart right, things would be so much different in the world. Yeah. Being full of curses and bitterness. That's, again, you see that on the grand scale in the world with the things like the Rwandan genocide and the Cambodian genocide, but you also see that just in a family.
Right.
When you disagree with someone and you say something hateful and storm out of the room, or maybe not you, but I do. So that is, you see that on every level, shedding blood, just, and if you think back to the first murder when Cain killed Abel, God said, how did I know about this? Because even the ground cried out and told me. So that bloodshed that we watch it in movies and we play it in video games, it breaks God's heart. And it's part of the deception where we're just totally immune to it almost.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So when we don't have any fear of God. And so there's a huge connection to each one of those spiritual categories, whether it was, fallen culture and society or our own heart or something much grander that plays out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, and this is every day. So Satan likes to separate us in our ideology, whether it's identity or race or power that we have.
Or politics.
Right. And so how can we separate you all? Because again, division. We don't want unity. And that even goes into our churches. And why do we have so many denominations and developing different ridiculous things over paint or just who's involved or who's not involved? And then how we separated because Lord's Supper's done different at this spot than that spot. And we just see these different versions of Bibles as well.
Yeah.
Well, my Bible's the right one. It has to be a King James Bible or else you're reading the wrong one.
Yeah.
Even though I don't understand it.
Right. So I think it just helps to remember that the enemy is quite literally surrounding you, your home, your church, your neighborhood, your work. And his goal is to cut you off from the essential supply that you need of prayer, community, love, forgiveness, acceptance, hope, encouragement, peace, joy, in the effort and in the hope that we'll throw up our hands and say, I'm done. I quit trying to live for God. And it works.
Yep, it does.
Yeah.
So warning, okay, so misidentifying the enemy, going back to Ephesians 6, is huge. Because again, your enemy is not the people around. Your enemy is Satan and what he is trying to do to us. He's influencing others. He's causing them to use weapons that make us separate, divide us, and then we fight, whether it's really rulers or against authoritarians, against the powers of the dark world, and against the spiritual forces. We've got to figure out the right weapons. Yep. And if we don't find our right weapon to fight the real enemy, then we're never going to stop fighting. It's just going to keep happening because what we are going to do is never push away the real enemy because we're turned the wrong direction, fighting the wrong thing.
Right. Yeah. So as you engage in culture, remember that you are not fighting flesh and blood.
Correct.
That is that Ephesians 6 principle. You are not fighting each other. Right. It's not against flesh and blood. It's against all of those things that you just listed, the rulers, the authorities, the powers of the dark world, spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. And so culture, what we see happening in the headlines, what we see manifested as homicides and gun violence and mass shootings and rapes and all of those sorts of things are the visible veil of invisible spiritual conflict. Right. And when we start to lift that, and we see, there's real forces fighting against us, then we see the root. And chaos is just the symptom. The root is what's behind the veil, right? What's going on that we can't see.
And if our heart's not right, then we're never going to be able to see that.
No, but we have to learn to so that we can respond more wisely.
Right.
Because if we can't ever learn to see that and respond more appropriately, then we are going to be stuck in this darkness.
Yep.
And that is not what God wants for us. And so in our next episode, we are going to be very practical. And we're going to break down basically the armor of God.
Yep.
And how we can use the armor of God to help us really fight the enemy and how to use our spiritual tools to wage war in those heavenly places.
This isn't the VBS version of the armor of God, is it?
It's not going to be the VBS version where we come in wearing
full armor,
cardboard armor. No, because I think that that's a problem.
Yep.
The fact that we teach to children that it's a cardboard version of Christianity, it's no wonder we're all hoodwinked.
Right. And then whenever we talk about stuff like this of today, we don't really see behind what's really going on and taking place because I've got my shield and it's a cardboard thing and it's not understanding what the sword is and the word of God and what it means and how to use it.
Right. We are totally inept because we have been deceived about what the real weapons are and how to use them. And that's very unfortunate. And so that is what we are going to focus on next week.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us for today's conversation. My hope is that you leave here reminded that whatever you're facing, you're not crushed, abandoned, or destroyed. That's the promise of 2 Corinthians 4:8-9 and the heartbeat of hope through the hard. Visit curatedcoalition.com for all of our coaching services or to book your free consultation. We'll see you next time.